Ladies and gentlemen, it is currently September 2025, and we are in the middle of a fun little mini-series of drama. And that drama is the Hikaru Nakamura Road to the Candidates Tournament. The Candidates Tournament is an 8-player double round-robin tournament that happens once every 2 years for some reason, and the winner of it plays for the World Championship. Now, one of the spots to qualify for this tournament is the rating spot. Basically, the highest rated player in the world who plays a minimum number of games every year. At the beginning of this, Hikaru had played 18 games. He has to play 22 more games and maintain his rating. So he went around the United States. First, he went to the Louisiana State Championship. He won that tournament shockingly with 7 points out of 7. All of a sudden, he signed up for the Iowa State Championship, the corn state. #1 producer, grower, supplier of corn in the entire country. So it's quite a corny way, if you will, to qualify for the candidates. In this video, I will be showing you the games that he played against the players. This has caused a little bit of an uproar, as always in the chess world, with people criticizing or saying they don't care or saying this is the fault of the international governing body to allow this. Most recently, a fun little clip came out from the Grand Swiss tournament being held in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, where there was a discussion between Hans Niemann and some grandmasters with the intention to travel and track Hikaru's whereabouts in the tournaments to pay grandmasters to play in them, and every victory would be $10,000, all expenses included. As always, I have absolutely no clue at all where Hans is getting his funds from, but that is neither here nor there. I am not his accountant or business manager, but what I will say is, yeah, I think this is a very funny phenomenon that people would try to snipe his tournaments. If there was one person in the world that would try to track down Hikaru at a tournament and get his autograph, it would be Hans Niemann. No, I'm saying to play him in a game. Here's the funny thing, though. Because they are so close in rating, you would need to play several rounds of a tournament before you get paired against somebody. So they would both need to get 3 or 4 out of 4 or whatever. 3 out of 3, 4 out of 4. You know what Hikaru should do if he gets sniped? He should win 3 games and leave the tournament. He shouldn't even, play. That would be the ultimate troll move. Now, let's get into the games. So this is episode number 3. Hikaru has now played 11 total games out of the required 22 that he needs to get to the 40 games total. He has 11 more games to go. I don't know where he's going to appear next, but that's the beautiful thing. Where in the world is Hikaru Nakamura? Instead of Carmen Sandiego, was that the name of the series? Anyway, here we go. Hikaru, Iowa. I imagine this was played in Des Moines because I literally don't know a single other city in Iowa. Iowa is a shockingly unremarkable state, which is actually very important in presidential elections. It's shockingly important, but shockingly unimportant. Now, first player, Hikaru goes up against Benjamin Darr. For the record, the locals of these tournaments in Iowa, in Louisiana, super happy that Hikaru was there, all taking pictures with him and analyzing with him. And it's just a great experience. D4, D5, and Hikaru pays homage to me because I love putting the bishop on g5 in these positions. Bishop g5. By the way, Hikaru and I will be on the same team in about 3 weeks in Team USA versus Team India. That is happening in Arlington. Bishop g5 is a move that I like to play. Now we are in a Trompowsky e3 c5. Black playing the best way. Bishop takes. Here the best way to play is to take with the g pawn and then try to play in the middle, try to open up the g file. G takes is a very dynamic move. The problem with this move is not that it's a mistake, but generally, if you're going to take with the e-pawn, in my opinion, you should have a pawn on c6. Once you commit to this, now this pawn will basically always be traded somehow, and this pawn will have it'll be a weakness. There will be no pawn to protect it. In general, if you have a pawn standing in the center of the board, and it cannot be defended by another pawn, it's a good chance it's going to be a weakness. There are some exceptions. Knight c3. Knight e2. So Hikaru is playing g3, bishop g2, knight f4. Pretty funny, Stockfish is already complaining. Now, black here commits a very, very, very big decision. c4. It's a very, very big decision. You're all right, you can leave this pawn, and now Hikaru will try to put pressure on these pawns throughout the game, either with his pieces, or with a pawn break, or with another pawn break. Generally, when you are so cramped, you rely on the pawn breaks, the spot in the position where a pawn trade will be initiated. In this case, White will then advance forward with a fork. Actually, even now the move e4 could be the best move. Hikaru goes a3. Very, very tame move. A little bit of a, No, I'm not saying he's late. I'm just saying it's a little bit of a lazy move. You're just kind of like, a3, no bishop b4, good move. Black tries to mimic. Shockingly, this is such a huge mistake because it already allows Hikaru to play e4. Now, Hikaru is not immediately going to go swarm his opponent. I actually have a weird feeling that, Hikaru spent 8 seconds on his next move. He could have, spent 10 and maybe played e4. He goes here. Not too complicated. Black develops and then, repositions the knight. But now the move e4 is only going to get tastier and tastier. And there it is. So now White is going to activate the bishop. White is going to dance into the middle of the board with his pieces. He's probably going to play rook e1, rook d1, knight. Oh, they're not on the same square. Something like knight to f4. He takes on d5. Totally fine. Now this bishop is getting a lot more powerful. Here comes the knight to e4. The rooks will come to the middle. The knight will go to c5. Okay, don't hang your queen. He doesn't do it. Knight c5, this is a target, this is a target, that's a target, that's a target. And this bishop is not very powerful. The bishop is being very nicely dominated by the pawn chain. And now White wins because you can take the bishop and play this move knight to f4. Rook e1 is also good, right? Targeting the weak pawn. By the way, this bishop totally locked out. It's going to need at least 2 more moves to get back into the game. And this is high-level stuff. It is also the only move to make progress. Now, with White here, you could trade and put your queen out, not like that, like this, active rook, active bishop, you are better in the long run. But bishop takes d5 is a very classy, high-level move. If the pawn takes, the knight will jump into e6. The problem is if the queen takes, the knight will also jump into e6. So you give up the piece that traditionally is associated with the stability of your position, but now black is under overwhelming pressure. The bishop is never going to have enough time to get back into the position. d5 is swarmed, and rook e1, and now you are threatening the queen. And it's just very impressive how Hikaru managed to completely dominate and launch a devastating attack, threatening rook e7 if the rook moves, just because black played with one poor piece. Now, look, I get he's the second best player in the world. Another thing is, a player 400 points lower rated than White would have also probably played a lot of these similar moves from around this position. But it is just very instructive that black, who is 1900 is an amazing rating, by the way. If any of you watching this are 1900 or higher, you should be very proud of yourself, even if you've stagnated. Like, 1900 is a 99th percentile rating, all right? And, I'm just saying that Hikaru didn't do something completely groundbreaking here, but this is very high-level understanding that you have the time to trade off this bishop for a seemingly very powerful knight, and just because black has one piece offside, it is absolutely dominated. Look how quickly White swarms. Every move played, bishop takes knight, and then all of this, every move had a threat. Every move came down with thundering effect, and that is called grabbing the initiative. Rook e8, knight takes d5. For like 7 straight moves, White created a threat and improved the position. Beautiful example of initiative. This is an intermediate textbook example of, how to generate all this momentum. Now, Matthew, Pikus, Pikachu, I don't know. Anyway, d4, knight f6, we will look at it from Hikaru's perspective. It is a little harder in this day and age to play black, especially when people are showing up with the Jobava London. This could be something that this person studied under the tutelage of Daniel Naroditsky or Alexander Bortnik, both massive practitioners. Hikaru deliberately plays a very solid line. He doesn't enter the forcing lines with c5, which, again, the reason you don't enter into really, really forcing lines with c5 is because people memorize 15, 20 moves. This is a good lesson for anybody here that's going to play at a local club tournament, experienced tournament player. Sometimes playing the main move plays into your opponent's hands because that's the thing they're going to study the most. And playing solidly with c6 and just not letting the opponent get what they want, which is some sort of attack, is better because after 7 or 8 moves, the opponent will get impatient. Their preparation is not paying off as easily. Look, knight f3, bishop e2, knight e5. So Pikus is playing, or Matthew's playing all the right moves. Hikaru plays knight bd7. He's just uber solid. Everything is solid. We're trying to trade off. f3 is, again, probably the best move. Disallowing this, preparing e4 and g4. And Hikaru just plays a super calm knight takes knight. Now, if pawn takes, knight comes back, you win this. Bishop takes. It looks like White has done everything right. But Black hasn't done anything wrong. And he just plays b5. So now this pawn is going to be used as a counterattacking measure. Why? Because maybe White wants to castle. So Hikaru's sending him an indication, I'm going to threaten you over there. Now, believe it or not, the best plan of action, according to the computer, is to go queen here and castle. The computer does not think that Black has enough. The truth is he doesn't. 2 pawns can't do it themselves. You need help. But just the mere threat of Hikaru telling you, I'm going to attack that side of the board. It's like Babe Ruth calling the home run. You castle, I'll checkmate you. So white makes a gross overreaction here. Instead, white should have realized, look, I'm setting up all my attack over here. I either, castle this way or I'm going to be in big trouble. This is an overreaction because it allows Hikaru to kick the knight away. And now he takes over the initiative. This is a target. So you got to defend it, right? King f2. Now I castle. Now I have forced your king to a position rather than letting him go that way where you can create an attack. Now that your king is here, you're not going to attack. Even though that's the side of the board where you set up the position to attack in the first place. So Hikaru pokes a hole in the opponent's opening, and here comes the punishment. Now I'm going to take your bishop, or go here, there, and target the king, and also I have my own counterplay ready to go. So the bishop moves, but here comes e5. This is not a move that we were prepared to see. When a move looks impossible, but it's played and it's the best move, you're in trouble. By the way, if you take it, I will very quickly play queen e7, try to win the pawn back, f6. For example, it looks like white is doing just fine, but this move absolutely rips apart the position. Knight f6, queen f6, rook f6, actually all good moves. This is very nasty. Bishop in, trade, replace, rook e8. And Hikaru swarmed here. Bishop g7 continued to put pressure on white. Couple of more repositioning moves. White tries to make a break. Hikaru happily trades and then gives away his light-squared bishop. Sorry, not gives away, trades his light-squared bishop, because obviously that was not a very powerful piece. Queen d3, and slowly we improve. We break through on the queen side while keeping the tension. You'll notice these pawns are staring at each other. Neither side wants to take. Higher level players like Hikaru or even a 1900 player like Matthew know that you don't want to break the symmetry, but it's just a matter of time until you do. And it is over. Matthew just resigns here because he's going to lose 1 pawn, 2 pawns, 3 pawns, and probably the king. It's amazing, right? Like these players like Matthew, like Benjamin, they would beat all of you. They would probably make it look pretty easy. And that's not me insulting you. Like sometimes I insult you guys and I say, oh, you would lose this position up a queen. You would lose this position with both colors. You'd lose this position with both colors, by the way. No, listen, I make fun of myself as well. If you ever watch one of these videos and you get offended by what I'm saying, it's time to get off the device. Like, go outside, breathe some fresh air. We're all in this together. These guys would crush you. And I mean, Hikaru making it look very, very nice. Now, we have another 1900 before we move on to the Masters. 2147 and 2100. I think these are FIDE ratings, so these players are probably national masters in the American Chess Federation. Hikaru has the white pieces this game. We go for a nice little Queen's Gambit declined, exchange variation. Again, the plans here are as follows, okay? White is going to set up like this. And so now white is either going to choose this setup with a knight on e2 to try to play f3, e4, but what is more likely, since this bishop is here, is you will play queen c2, bishop d3, knight f3, play like this, and then you do what's called the minority attack. You have 3 pawns versus 4, means you have a minority of the pawns, black has the majority of the pawns, and then oftentimes you generate some play here, you try to target these pawns. Sometimes you attack on the king side, but it is a bit unlikely. Now, bishop d6. We trade, Hikaru sets up the pieces, and now we see this plan in action. f3, e4, right? The knight is going to the non-traditional square, but it supports the center. Black struggles in these Queen's Gambit exchange positions to put those pieces on the right squares. These positions take years and years and years to get good at. Castles, takes, but credit to Zagar, Dane. Let me see. Matthew Pikus, Benjamin Darr. Because Dane is this person's name. Dane. So the first name is first. Sometimes sometimes it goes backwards. Okay, so queen d2, a5, right? Improving. f3. We see Hikaru implementing the game plan. The knight goes to d7, e4. Now a question, what are we doing? Castle right, castle left, leave the king in the middle of the board, knight b6, okay. Very nice move. Very easy to control an opponent's knight with a pawn like this. Castles. And again, a very important thing. Do you take? Never in a million years. Do you push? Maybe, to try to generate play. Do you leave the pawns? Keep the tension. We see the tension being kept by the experienced player. Rook d1. By the way, black here trying to launch an attack. Instead, he should have went a4. And actually, I got to give credit. Dane is keeping even with the number 2 in the world, 28-15 rating. I mean, just amazing stuff from Hikaru. Like, no, sorry, from Dane. From Hikaru, not that impressive. Not yet. H5. Queen F4, right? We got ideas like Queen C7. Hikaru just making a general improving move. Believe it or not, H5 nearly triples White's advantage. The thing is that Black has no attack, really, and kind of lost some time here. Rook D7. Now, Black very quickly gave Hikaru a target. Like, he just pushed the pawn. Like, I gotta improve the position a little bit. And immediately it became a target. Queen H6, Knight G3, and now Knight G6, which is an amazing move. Many people here would go G6. They would simply play the solid move, locking the queen away, and White would very quickly generate all this attack and probably just win the game. Credit to Black, who finds a great move, Knight G6, counterattacking the queen, and then opens the middle of the board. This is all top lines of the computer, giving up a pawn to try to get some counterplay. Hikaru has to play this very passive move, Knight E2, but he is a pawn up. And the thing is that Black might play this position well enough, but also might not. Like, at the end of the day, Hikaru's still a pawn up, and everything is defended, and at some point, your will to play the best moves will perish. G6, F6 on the board. Hikaru plays H4, kicking the knight back, and at some point, you will probably just make a mistake. And here it is. Doubling White's advantage. Hikaru leaving these pawns stranded, isolated. F6 is a weakness, this is a weakness, and this is a pass pawn. Black could have fought with pawn takes, but there is no guarantee you would have survived. Hikaru crashes in. Knight F5, planting the knight there, trades the knight, but here comes the second one, and the weakness of the F-pawn. Knight back to D7. Very nice tactical defense. Knight E7 would have been a fork of the rook and the king, so that's not the best move, but it doesn't really matter. Rook C7, Rook B7. I think here the computer wanted Rook E5. I don't get it, but doesn't really matter. Improvements are made. Rook E3 is a nice finish. The point is that after you trade, it's a fork. The rook has to defend the knight, and Hikaru won a third game. Nice positional grind, and shout out to these 1900s who are putting up a fight. Let's go up like 200 points in FIDE, and let's see these players, these 2100s, fight back, see what they can do. E4, sorry. Let me flip. Hikaru has been playing the Sicilian. Now, if you want to bore a Sicilian player to death, you gotta play the Alapin. Or you have to play a sideline. The thing is, if you enter a hyper messy variation like the Rossalimo, there are so many ways Hikaru can make life miserable for you. He plays Knight F6, which is a move, for sure. And now here, the most annoying line by far when I play is when they take the knight and then play D3 and H3. They just set up everything on a light square. By the way, that is what the player with the white pieces did, playing the most annoying line. G6 now, trying to develop the bishop over here. And here, White's plans include H3, Bishop E3, Knight C3, A4, A5. A4, A5 designed to control the queen side, not make it easy for me to make a move. By the way, the player with the white pieces played all these moves. So a 2140 FIDE rated player knows all the top moves. And this shows where we've progressed to as a chess society, right? Like, excellent opening preparation. This is precisely the risk that Hikaru is running at playing in these tournaments. You run into a 2300 young player. I don't know how young Rao is, maybe not like 5 years old, but you're going to get into some dangerous territory. Knight D7, Queen D2, and White has played all prep. Now, long castle was actually the wrong move. It looks like you set up everything to long castle, but actually the idea for White is to castle short. Believe it or not. Castling into this bishop is, and you know, Black's pawn majority is actually risky. The computer here also wants Knight H2, which is not a move that anybody plays, let alone a 2100. Not even sure Hikaru would play the move Knight H2, but actually it's castles, and A4 is used more as a positional restriction than castling this way. When you do this, you indicate to Hikaru you would like a fight. Hikaru plays Queen C7, and by the way, as the higher rated player, he's more likely to win in a firefight because he is 2800. D4, also not the best move. These pawns are more for restriction. D4 opens up the game to craziness. Pawn takes D4, bishop takes D4. Hikaru kicks the bishop back, and now a very nice move. It looks, again, like White has something, but this pawn absolutely shuts down this knight ruthlessly. This knight is shut down also by the pawn structure, and this bishop is also shut down. It's actually kind of crazy, but White's pieces don't have mobility. They don't. You have to find them somewhere. King B1 is a good improving move. Hikaru castles. And now what does White do? What does White do? G4, of course, but look at this, minus 0.4. G4 was the wrong plan. Shocking. It's just so fascinating. Like, what the computer wants: queen c1, b3, a3. I mean, I don't know how you can come up with these moves. G4, knight c5 attacks the queen. The queen goes here, and Hikaru, beautiful repositioning. Looking for that maneuver. And the thing is, with bishops, they shut down so much of the opponent's territory just from a distance. White's pieces don't do that. You trade the rook, I take with the queen, and you're still trying to attack. And now I immediately go punish your mistakes. Your knight has to move, or it has to be defended. Now I go here. Your pieces are stuck. They're all kind of getting frozen. Any move you make, my position improves. G5, I slide the queen over. Now your rook is hanging. You go rook g3. I take, actually, the best move was to push, but whatever. I take trying to open up my rook. Queen e7, that's a target, right? But look at Hikaru's time management. Not perfect, right? Not perfect. White is playing very, very well. King b8, I mean, this is just an improving move played in 1 second. Literally 1 second. Hikaru played king b8 in a second to move the king away from the battle. White now goes here, spending a couple of minutes. Hikaru decides the bishop had a great life, but it's going to be repositioned. F4. Again, White is just trying anything. White is playing any aggressive move. Hikaru plays pawn takes f4 and slides the king to safety. But in the long run, White's going to have these endgame weaknesses. 2 isolated pawns against Black's 2 and 3 setup. Rook to d3, knight back to e6, offering a trade. We're trying to build around that weakness and this weakness. Queen d1 is a double question mark move. It took 29 moves for White to make a significant mistake. Actually, bishop g3 would have been fine. But then, of course, Hikaru would have proceeded. But instead of this, this is simply a pawn. And the thing is, you know, you might try to get in here with a rook, but it's not good enough. You know why? Because if he takes, it's a draw. But in 4 seconds, Hikaru goes here. The rook is still hanging, but more importantly, I'm threatening your bishop. I'm threatening to take the knight and open your king. I'm threatening the pawn, and I'm threatening to trade the queen or win the queen on the back rank. Go here. Now I take. There's no mate. Queen f6 back, threatens mate for White, on White. Now we grab the bishop. You only have 1 check. King would go to b8, and if knight c6, it looks like you are mating me, by the way. Looks like it. But queen f1, king here, queen here, and I am mating first. Tough game, but Hikaru gets the job done. That was a great game by the player with the white pieces. Great game. And now the final game of the event against Artemy Khanbutayev, who sounds like 17 different mixed martial arts fighters. If I had to play somebody named Artemy Khanbutayev, I don't think I would even show up to the game, to be honest. Terrifying name. C4, knight f6, we have in English, one of the most complicated systems. E4, the Mikenas Karos variation. I used to play this line all the time, but it very quickly becomes a Sicilian. And the funny thing about this opening, the 4-knight Sicilian, but it's really with C4, it's not quite the 4-knight Sicilian. It's kind of the Taimanov, where White then plays C4, knight C3. Fun fact, this is known as the Kramnik variation. Named after none other than Vladimir Kramnik. Bishop to b4, takes. The bishop goes to d3, e5, both sides castle. And now Black relies on dynamic play in the form of potentially pulling off a d5, in the form of pressure on the center, the open b line, the dark squared weaknesses, to kind of offset the fact that White has good control and long-term attacking prospects. So, bishop e3, rook c1, a3 kicking out the bishop. The problem with this approach by Black is that Black needed to solidify the dark squares faster or take the knight. You gotta take the knight. That's the whole reason you put the bishop here, to damage White's pawn structure. When you wait too long, the bishop now doesn't have a purpose. If you take now, I'm just gonna take with the rook and you never damage my pawns. And if you go backwards, we trade like this, and I will exploit the dark squares of the position that you weaken so much. Knight a4, fantastic move, and c5. Showing the levels. Bishop d3, covers a6. This is a weakness. If rook b8 is played, I might play b4, I might not. But in the long run, by the way, this pawn will be a liability as well. The thing with Black is if you play a dynamic opening, you have to understand the ideas. And if you get squished, you will lose. When you play an opening that has holes, you play an opening that's Swiss cheesy, you might realize really quickly you're lactose intolerant. d5, we never play this move. Or do we? No. Hikaru plays cd6 in 10 seconds, showing his understanding. If he had taken like this, Black can play CD5 or knight d5, activating the knight. This looks really nice optically, because you get these pawns, even though white gets the pass pawn. But that's not what happens. Hikaru plays like this, and now that pawn's a liability for the entire game. The c6 pawn will be hunted the whole game. And this pawn, right? And Hikaru is just going to plant his knight there, dance it to the edge of the board. He doesn't repeat the position, shockingly. F3, and guess what? Guess who's going to come to the middle in the long run? The king, the rook, knight a5, b4. There it is. Watch this repositioning. Completely controlling this pawn, not allowing it to come forward. The king gets closer. The bishop is going to move out of the way. There it is. Black gets a little bit desperate here. Hikaru just rook c5, absolutely ruthless. Too many weaknesses. Too many weaknesses, and that sets up tactics. He wins the pawn, and black simply resigns. And so, Hikaru, 5 out of 5, the honorary Iowa and Louisiana state champion, undefeated in his 12 games so far, 12-0, in a shocking turn of events that nobody saw coming. He is just 5 plus 6 in the previous tournament. He is 11 games away. And another thing is, he is actually tied for his all-time peak. Hikaru's highest rating ever was, I think, in 2015 or 2016. 28-16. He is now up to 28-16. Nobody is going to catch him for this spot. Now, as always, let me know your thoughts on the games. Look, in general, people's opinions on this are don't hate Hikaru, hate the rules. And there are very easy fixes to this if the International Federation actually doesn't want people to farm. But this has happened in every cycle already. This has happened with Ding. This happened with Alireza, who had to qualify by rating and also by some minimum games. But yeah, that's all for today. Hikaru continues to crush, and it would be very cool if he won 11 more games to go completely undefeated, raising his rating to 2,825 and qualifying like that. That's all. Leaderboards are out on Chessly. Check it out. More courses coming soon there as well. And you know the drill. Get out of here.